The next question that could be asked is these people can try to exaggerate what if someone did this or what if someone did that to try to stoke in fear into people so that they would get scared and not be willing to let my brain savant go free, only due to extreme envy of my brain savant. The only way we can answer this question of what if someone committed a crime is by looking at the crime that wasn't if committed, but was actually committed. To try to see if a crime would have occurred other than that one, then how it would have been handled, who would have committed it, who would have known about it, who would have been involved in it, and who would have done the last part of covering it over. So now we have the wedding crime. The wedding crime was committed by, it's a big mystery on who committed it. They never told me who committed it. All we know is there were people that were involved in it, mainly people like Assad, who would always be walking ahead and behind all the adults who could even have remotely have said anything even remotely considered bad around me as a child. Every single adult who could have ever have remotely even have said anything you remotely considered bad around me as a child would be a BFF of Assad, whom you would always find in weddings walking ahead and behind that BFF. The other people that would be fully involved in the crime would be people like Bushra Akhtar. The facts and evidences will clearly show that after the wedding crime was committed, whomever it was committed with, let's say, for example, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, Uncle Joey. Uncle Joey commits the wedding crime. After he's done committing the wedding crime, Uncle Joey's mother talks about the wedding crime all day and night long. And then you have people like Bushra Akhtar, who listen about the wedding crime. People like Assad, who would not only be involved in the wedding crime, who would not only be present with the adults who would be involved in the wedding crime, who would not only be walking ahead and behind all those adults as BFFs, never leaving their side in the wedding crime or during the wedding. People like Assad and Bushra Akhtar would also be hearing about the wedding crime from, let's say, if Uncle Joey committed it, Uncle Joey's mother. So Uncle Joey's mother would then talk about the wedding crime all day and night long. Now, first of all, before you make assumptions, let's make one thing clear. I've been watched 24/7 since I was an 11-year-old child. Law enforcement confessed that I had nothing to do with the wedding crime before they've tried to frame me for it. The other thing that has to be considered is I was never even present in the wedding, wherever it might have taken place in. And the third thing that has to be considered is the fact that no one has ever told me or my mother about the wedding crime. We know this from facts and evidences due to the fact that we were watched 24/7. So the next thing that we have to understand is the fact that people would be knowing about the wedding crime while it would be occurring. People like Bushra Akhtar. Bushra Akhtar would and Assad would be told about the wedding crime by the person, let's say Uncle Joey, his mother, or whomever might be close to him. Let's say if Uncle Joey committed it, Uncle Joey's mother would talk about it all day and night long from morning till night. Assad would have to hear it from his ears. Assad would have to see it from his eyes. Bushra Akhtar would have to hear it from her ears. She would have to see it from her eyes. They will have to process it with their mind. They cannot claim that while Uncle Joey's mother was talking about it all day, night long from morning till night, they couldn't hear it because they turned off their ears. Or while Uncle Joey's mother was talking about it for all day, night long, they couldn't see it because they closed their eyes. It's just not possible. Common sense dictates it's just not possible. We're not that stupid. So Uncle Joey, like whoever committed the crime, by the way, I don't know if it was Uncle Joey or not. I'm just saying it's an example. So if the wedding crime was committed by him, one person I can guarantee would be involved would be Assad. And the reason I know Assad would be involved is because Assad was always walking ahead and behind all of these adult BFFs of law enforcement who could have even remotely have said anything remotely considered bad around me as a child. And by the way, that's only saying and not doing. Only doing is a crime. Saying something that doesn't harm anyone or does anything where what my dad, the Greedy Famer, was doing in 2011, where he was encouraging people to join terror groups, unless if it's something like that, it's not a crime, no matter what they say or how they say it. So the wedding crime gives us an excellent example. person like Uncle Joey would have committed it. Assad would have been taken part in it. Bushra Akhtar would have taken part in it. Assad would have known about it all day, night long, from morning till night. Bushra Akhtar would have known about it all day, night long, from morning till night. Then the wedding would take place. During that wedding, we would find out exactly how much Assad and Bushra Akhtar really cared about the crime that they had just committed and been a part of. Assad would have been ahead and behind the person who would have committed the wedding crime. Bushra Akhtar would have been ahead and behind the person who would have committed the wedding crime, clearly showing from their actions they couldn't care less who committed what crime or for what reason. Then after the wedding crime, we find out how much they really cared about reporting it. Assad would have never reported it. Bushra Akhtar would have never reported it. So we don't need any ifs. We have an actual crime. And then at the end of that crime, we have law enforcement who would have covered it over despite knowing everything about it. So in the year 2023, when law enforcement was trying to frame me for the wedding crime due to knowing that they would lose their case on August 25th, 2023, they knew that on August 9th, 2022, I had found out about my brain savant due to me being able to use it for 6 hours straight. And on August 25th, 2023, a year later, they knew for a fact that I would ask for my brain savant powers after I would win my case. Obviously, after August 25th, 2023, I also knew that they had a brain scanner due to the fact that everyone was acting really strangely around me at Target stores and other places. Miss Deb was continuously asking me to marry her daughter, and so after August 25th, 2023, I told everyone straight out, I'm a triple savant. I know you know. I also know you have a brain scanner. So then after that, law enforcement had to try to frame me for that wedding crime after August 25th, 2023. Now, the thing that has to be remembered is the entire year of 2023, law enforcement was stubbornly, they were running their money fraud. And in November 2023, that same year, law enforcement was helping Uncle Joey with his wedding sex scheme ad, almost as if Uncle Joey was a sitting governor or something. You know the details. He was given top-notch intelligence on everything, on how to run the sex scheme ad. You know the details. Anyways, so we know for a fact law enforcement could not care less about any wedding crimes that they covered over knowingly. So the last person that has to be involved in the crime has to be law enforcement, not only because they covered it over, also because they couldn't care less about covering it over and then running money fraud, sex schemes, not caring a thing about the entire world watching them doing all of this. They couldn't care less. And we also know from their confession before trying to frame me that I did not have anything to do with this wedding crime. So instead of making this theoretical what if this happened? What if that happened? What if Hassan did this? What if Hassan did that? We have to look at the actual crimes. Who committed them? Who knew about it while it was being committed, as in Assad and Bushra Akhtar, and who covered it over, knowing that what they were covering over, not caring in the least about what they were covering over, and instead running sex schemes and money fraud with that person, only to find out that I won my case on August 25th, 2023, to try to frame me for that same crime right after confessing to doing so, only because they're scared, very scared that they're gonna have to let go of my brain savant and let me use my brain savant to study. Obviously, because studying is a crime. Obviously, that's what it looks like. Since July 1st, 2023, I haven't been able to stare into a tablet. This tablet that I used to stare into from morning till night. It's 21st century. You just put your books into PDF format, you put the SD card in there, and then you got a tablet stand and you just stare into a tablet. From morning till night, I stared into this tablet for 4 years. October 2019 until July 1st, 2023. Mid-May 2023, they did a brain savant test and they found out my powers were increasing. They never let me stare into a tablet ever again, to stare into a textbook like how I like staring into it. I told them before I even went to Russia, I told them the way my brain savant powers started was when I was a 9-year-old child. I used to stare into the History Channel logo from morning till night. They were just like, beautiful lie, nice story, blah, 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 this and that. I was just like, it's fine. I'm telling the truth. You don't have to believe everything I tell you. So, yeah, what I didn't know was they had a time machine. I call it the time machine. So they just told their computer, they're like, computer, lock up his entire brain except for the childhood autistic part. They did that on January 20th. 2026. If they're your friend, ask them about the January 20th test. And the computer basically told them that I was telling them the truth. I was able to watch documentaries like how I watched them as a 9-year-old child. Literally impossible. Even if they let go of my brain savant completely, I would not be able to redo what happened on January 20th. Mainly because you got to remember, the brain savant has evolved. The only reason I have all these powers like instantaneous photographic memory, focusing, and innovation is with those powers increasing over time is due to the fact that it's evolved. So if I try to watch documentaries like how I watched them when I was a 9-year-old child, when the brain savant actually started, I wouldn't be able to do it after they let go of my brain savant completely. Just to let you know how advanced this technology is that they're given, that Kelly uses to stroke my penis with all day. I'm not joking. Well, anyways, so the thing that I was trying to say was the fact that when you have an actual crime, getting into hypothetical scenarios of what if Hassan did this, what if Hassan did that, is not necessary anymore due to the fact that you have an actual crime. Now you know who would commit the crime. Now you know who would take part in it by knowing about it fully, not carrying a thing, still walking ahead and behind the person committing the crime throughout the entire wedding, never reporting it after the wedding, and now you know who would cover it over, which would be law enforcement, knowing what the crime is, knowing everything about the crime, the magnitude of the crime. Just look at Kim Jong-un and President Putin from 2023. You'll know the magnitude of the crime. Knowing the magnitude of the crime, and yet spending the entire year of 2023 doing nothing but running money fraud very stubbornly and sex schemes with Uncle Joey at the funeral in November 2023, clearly showing who the criminals are. So this if hypothetical scenario is no longer needed. Now you have to remember the fact that there have been numerous false testimonies made against me that law enforcement knew about. Law enforcement knew about November 20th being framed, being made, well, before that. Law enforcement knew about the wedding crime that was being framed on me. Okay, 2023. Law enforcement knew about November 20th, 2025 being framed on me. Okay, law enforcement knew about the 10-year-old child claiming 25 years later that I said anti-government things to him when I was a 10-year-old child being framed on me in mid-January 2026, okay? Law enforcement, by the way, did know about November 20th being framed on me. In early November, when I was going over to Russia, they knew. I told them about their previous false testimonies. They panicked due to the fact that they had a new one that they were planning against me for November 20th. So, and the group chat false testimony, obviously, with the time period, not even in the same time period that I was overseas, clearly showing from facts and evidences, fully fabricated knowingly. So after all these false testimonies are caught, the only thing, the scenario that they have for their what if Hassan did this scenario is to claim that as a child, while I was being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs like Uncle Joey, someone could have said something bad around me as a child. Now, you have to understand certain facts about this scenario. First of all, me being adult supervised in a setting where my mother is not present, only due to the fact that it's the only setting that was willing to watch me for free at this time, is literally the same as if my mother put me in a daycare when I was a child, and that daycare was the only daycare that would watch me for free while she went to go work at fast food restaurants. But before putting me in that daycare as a child, she went and she talked to law enforcement, letting them know, I know my child is in a setting where things that are even remotely considered bad could be said around my child, but I'm only doing this due to the force and necessity of a single mother. My child is 11 years old right now, and it's only going to stay till he gains even the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And then she put me in that daycare. Now, the thing that has to be looked at is not if any adults around that child said anything you remotely considered bad around the child. The thing that has to be looked at is not if they're trying to make me forget. It's not if the child repeated anything that was remotely said around the child when he was a child and hadn't even gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. The thing that has to be looked at is, first of all, did the mother take permission from law enforcement? Yes. When I was an 11-year-old child, she did. She let them know that that was the only option that was left, and she had to put me in that daycare till I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, since it was the only daycare that was willing to watch me for free while she worked at fast food restaurants. So that point's done with. Then the next question that has to be asked is, The next, was my mother ever present around me when anything you remotely considered bad could have been said around me in that daycare? Obviously not. If I'm being put in that daycare, the main point of me being put in that daycare is so that someone could watch me while my mother is out at work at fast food restaurants. So obviously she's not going to be around there. That much is given. She will never be in that setting, by the way, where any of law enforcement's like BFFs like Uncle Joey could have said anything you remotely considered bad around me as a child. Okay, so that question's done with. Now, the next question that could be asked is, so these questions pretty much sum up who is like, and the next question that would be asked is, did the mother take the child out of the daycare and never put him in any daycares that are no longer needed, knowing that anything you remotely considered bad could have been said around the child the moment the child's forced necessity could be ended? The answer to that question is yes. The mother did take the child out of that daycare the moment the forced necessity of the single mother was ended, and that daycare was the only one that was willing to watch a child for free. So those questions are questions that have to be answered. And once those questions are answered, you find out that if a crime was committed, who would have committed it? Mainly due to the fact that after the child gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, he was never tipped off. His mother was never tipped off, mainly due to the fact that it wasn't the child or the mother who were tipping off the daycare. The law enforcement were the people that were tipping off the daycare center, mainly due to the fact that law enforcement needed helping hands for their sex games, and they needed helping with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001. They needed helping hands for their money fraud that were just run till only about 2 months ago. So that question is also answered. Mother and the child were not tipped off. If they were tipped off, first of all, it's a child. It will definitely say something due to which everyone's going to know that it was tipped off. Second thing is, the mother would have said something due to which everyone would know that they're tipped off. The third thing is, if they were tipped off, they would have been tipping the daycare center off. But the daycare center was tipped off by law enforcement who wanted helping hands for their sex games and money fraud. So the thing about the if question is, what if someone committed this crime? Only to try to exaggerate these claims. Fact of the matter is, a person is seen from the moment they're gaining the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and before then, if they're in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad could be said by any of the adults, then you have to understand the fact that the adults have to be looked at. My mother would never be present there because the entire point of me being adult supervised would be that she's working at fast food restaurants, and that's the only place that would watch me for free. So the child is never looked at, is never liable under the law. The people that are liable are the adults. And the adults in this setting are not just the adults like Uncle Joey that are, law enforcement's own BFFs for decades, since 2001, literally. But the adults are also people in law enforcement, since the law enforcement people were obviously criminals in this case. You could disagree all you want, but that's a fact. So basically, the if scenario is easily answered, because there was a crime that was committed, and we know who would have committed it. We would know who would have known about it and not cared. We know who would have known about it, not cared, and not reported it. We know who would have covered it over and then run sex games and money fraud with everyone involved in that crime scene. So there's if scenarios no longer needed, also due to the fact that the child, as soon as he gains the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, is never seen in any settings where anything you remotely considered bad could have been said around the child. You got to remember, even when the child was a child, it was only something said around the child. No crimes were ever committed around the child, ever. But after he gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, the child's mother's promise is fulfilled, and he's never seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad is ever said around the child ever again. Clearly showing from facts and evidences that this if scenario is not needed at all, since you have an actual crime, and you know for a fact that the mother of the child was never even remotely present in a setting where anything you remotely consider bad could have been said around the child, for one. So, and two, she fulfilled her promise was the moment the child became even slightly mentally mature. And 3, the child has never been seen in a setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around the child since he gained the slightest bit of mental maturity. And 4, you have a brain scanner used on the child for years, finding out exactly what the child's thought process is. Does he want to harm people, or does he look at everyone with the same level of love and respect like his mother? And the answer is easily answered with that brain scanner. The brain scanner is going to easily show through facts and evidence is the fact that every single time I would meet someone, whether they be a Christian person, a Jewish person, an Orthodox Jewish person with long beard, I would meet them all with the same level of love and respect. Clearly showing from facts and evidences of years of data being collected with the brain scanner showing, and the fact that my mother's never once uttered one word considered bad her entire life since she was watched with me since I was an 11-year-old child, clearly shows from facts and evidences the fact that the child's thought process was just like the mother's. Now, the other thing that law enforcement might try to argue is that the mother was low IQ, dumb, stupid, this, that. This is why she didn't say anything bad. Well, first of all, if the mother was low IQ, dumb, or stupid, then she was smarter than law enforcement, since law enforcement never stopped running their sex schemes and money fraud, and the mother was smart enough to get the child out the moment his force and necessity was ended, something the child could not have done on its own. The mother had to do it, and she had to fulfill her promise, for one. And the other thing is, it's irrelevant what the mother's IQ is when we're looking at brain scan data to try to find out if the child was willing or wanting to do anything even remotely considered bad, or even looking at people who were either Christians or Jewish people with long beards in the most remote sense of negativity at all, or was he looking at everyone with the same level of love and respect like his mother? So this question of what my mother's IQ is, or whether she's dumb or smart or stupid, is irrelevant in this case. When you have a brain scanner, you have facts and evidences, you have no crimes, you have no intention of committing crimes, and most importantly, you have a brain scanner that shows from facts and evidences that not only did the mother never say one word considered bad her entire life, but that the child has never even remotely been present in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around the child from the moment he gained the slightest bit of mental maturity. So the other thing that we have to remember is the people using this if scenario. If the people are like Junaid, you have to remember the fact that this if scenario Junaid could have used to try to exaggerate claims in the month of June. He could have used it in the month of July. He didn't. So what has Junaid been doing? For the past year or so, almost every single week, Junaid has been threatening to break my car. Before, it was only due to anger at getting rejected by the girls who liked me due to finding out about my brain savant. Then, around May 25th, 2026, only about 2 months ago, Junaid was enviously running after one of my elementary school teachers, and he was rejected and had the police called on him, due to which Junaid now started to change his strategy. The entire month of June, the entire month of July, as the very first video in this series in the starting would show you, all Junaid did was beg me all day night long to help him go and scam all these older women or girls into sleeping with me first, telling them from the court chatter that I was the triple savant with the brain savant, who was literally the only triple savant in the world right now. So I would scam the girl and get her to sleep with me, knowing that I have no intention of marrying her or benefiting her in the least bit, and then passing her around to people like Junaid. And Junaid would beg me this the entire month of June, the entire month of July, as the very first video will show you in the very starting of it. Then, after he would beg me to go scam other people's daughters, in the entire month of June and the entire month of July, just the last 2 months, since today is August 7th, after doing this, Junaid I would obviously refuse, saying that I have no intention of marrying her, for one, and two, my brain savant's not only been proven by my own mind, telling me that it's there and it's really strong and powerful, and that it increases in power over time, it's also been proven by artificial intelligence, which means that I do not need to do this. When my brain savant gets freed, I go and get married, and I live the rest of my life happily ever after, not with some girl crying on the side about how I used her and then ran away. So I would tell Junaid straight out, I do not need to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not your man. You got to leave me now. So then, after doing this literally every single day, the month of June and the month of July, the last 2 months, Junaid would then say, he would then threaten me to take oil out of my car with a Jiffy Lube ad. Then he would threaten to break my car with the Pep Boys ad. Then he would threaten to break my windshield with the Safelite ad. Then he would threaten to slash my tires. It's the level of sex addiction that he had. But before doing all of these threats against me, Junaid would first get law enforcement right after May 25th, 2026 to break the front under part of my car, to make sure I got the message that he was fully willing to break it if I did not comply with his demand of going and scamming other people's daughters into sleeping with me and then passing them around to Junaid, which obviously I cannot do because I have a brain savant and I'm going to get married after it gets freed. I'm not going to go sleep with someone who's going to be crying over me all my life, saying that I used her and then ran away. So obviously I cannot do this even if I wanted to. So basically I would obviously say, no, I don't want to do this. So what ended up happening was Junaid broke the front under part of my car after May 25th, 2026 as a threat to say that if you don't comply with my demands, I will break your car. Obviously I refuse. It's my life. I'm not going to have someone crying over it all my life and saying, oh, he used me and then he ran away. I cannot do that. I do not want to do that to myself. I'm just going to find a wife after my brain savant gets freed, after I get my zero tolerance coffee done, just get married and not have to worry about anything. And you know I can get it done within 30 days due to the last June 24th, 2026 brain savant test having artificial intelligence telling you that it's definitely possible only with a human being like me who has literally the most profitable brain savant in the world right now, which got even Ibrahim, the greedy framer, and greedy, and he started asking me to marry his sister on July 18, just last month. So after May 25th, 2026, Junaid had law enforcement break the front under part of my car to send me a message that he was fully willing to break my car if I did not comply with his request of first scamming this girl, sleeping with her, knowing that I'm only using her and I have no intention of marrying her, and then passing her around to people like Junaid. And obviously, law enforcement would not tell the other girls that I was sleeping with other girls as well, and that I had no intention of marrying her since I can only marry one person and there are multiple people I'm sleeping with, due to the fact that law enforcement themselves would be in on it and they would be getting that fun by having me pass someone around that I was literally scamming. Yeah, these are the kinds of things Junaid was trying to force me to do. Obviously I refused because I didn't want anyone crying over this for the rest of my life and harassing me. I didn't promise anything to anyone and I don't want to be put in this situation. So I just said no. After May 25th, 2026, Junaid had law enforcement break the front under part of my car to send me a message that he was fully willing to take oil out of my car, Jiffy Lube commercial, break my car, Pep Boys commercial, slash my tires, the tire commercial, break my windshield, Safelite commercial, all these things. And then he had my car, the front under part of my car broken after May 25th, 2026. Then, in the month of June, Junaid was in sex rage. So what he ended up doing was having law enforcement break my Fire Stick for my TV to send me a message, I will break your things if you don't comply with my request. I still didn't comply because it's my life that's on the line, and I don't want someone crying on the side and harassing and annoying me all my life. So then Junaid had law enforcement break my charging outlet, which was a really nice one, and I charge all my things on it. And so then that was broken. And then after that, you know, every single day he would ask me, as it's shown in the very first video, in the starting, the first video in the series, and in the starting, Junaid would ask me literally every single day, even gave me names for Moana and Anderson. And Anderson, like, I seriously feel like smacking him across the face. That girl's like my little sister. When she was competing for this thing, I felt like telling her, like, you're not supposed to be doing this in the first place. Anyways, separate question, separate story. He shouldn't be running after her in the first place. But the thing about it is, just the fact that, what was I saying? Yeah. So, afterwards, every single day in the month of June and the month of July, Junaid did every single day was threaten me in the morning. It would say M&T Bank together or Chevrolet, let's ride together. And then it would be a threat, as in to say, Jiffy Lube, I'm taking oil out of your car. Pep Boys, I'm going to break your car. Safe Light, I'm breaking the windshield of your car. And yeah, the slash tire commercial, as in say, I'm gonna slash your tires. All these 4 threats after breaking my car, after breaking my Fire Stick, after breaking my charging outlet, within the last 2 months, all of these things done after May 25th, 2026, having a police call on Junaid by one of my elementary school teacher's sons, who's only about 2 years younger than me, and even running after her was something he was doing out of extreme envy, since he doesn't know her at all. She's just my elementary school teacher, and he found out about her, and then he started to enviously run after her till he had the police call on him, and then he started to do all these things. The entire month of June and the entire month of July, as the starting of the first video in this series will show you, all Junaid did was threaten me. First, ask me to go and scam these girls. Then he would threaten me, and then he would then he would ask me again to scam these girls. The next day it would be the same thing. All of this being done while breaking my thing. So break the front under part of my car right after May 25th, 2026, then start threatening me, then break my Fire Stick for my TV, then start threatening me, then break the charging outlet that I have. Doing these things one after one, try to threaten me and to force me to comply with his request of scamming these girls, which I cannot do, because if I did it, even if I succeeded in sleeping with 50 different girls, I'd have 50 different people on my conscience crying about how I used them, and that would have been wrong. So basically, yes. So the thing that the courts have to understand is, if Junaid is making this if scenario, what if this happened? What if that happened? What if Hassan did this? What if Hassan did that? You have to look at facts and evidences. First of all, there's no if scenario needed when there's an actual crime. The wedding crime, who committed it, let's say Uncle Joey did, who knew about it. Bushra Akhtar and Assad would definitely know about it, since Assad was always present ahead and behind each of these BFFs of law enforcement, and Bushra Akhtar obviously would know about it. To hear from whomever committed it, their parent or whoever was near that person. Let's say if Uncle Joey committed it, his mother would have talked about it all day, night long. Bushra Akhtar would know. So then we know who committed the crime, we know who would have known about it, and we know who wouldn't care, because during that wedding, Bushra Akhtar and Assad would have been ahead and behind the people committing the crimes, and then we would have known about who never reported it. Bushra Akhtar and Assad, we would have known about who would have covered it over. Law enforcement, we would have known about how they covered it over with total disregard and total carelessness. The year of 2023, when they were trying to frame me for it, the only thing that law enforcement did was stubbornly run their money fraud and run their sex scenes for Uncle Joey at the November 2023 funeral, in the year when they were trying to frame me for it, for the wedding crime, before they confessed that I had nothing to do with it. Clearly shown from facts and evidences, not only did they cover it over, they covered it over with complete carelessness. They couldn't care less. All they cared about was their sex, and they cared about their money. So basically, yes, they were receiving sex from Uncle Joey's in-laws. They had to give it back to Uncle Joey. That's how it works. So basically, yes, that's what was going on. This crime, the wedding crime, really takes the if out of the question, because we don't need an if when we have an actual crime. And the other question that has to be asked is, has Hassan ever tried to commit any crimes in his life? The answer to that question is, not only have I not even committed any crimes, I've never even remotely been present in any settings where anything, even remotely, any crimes was committed my entire life. Not only have I, that part true, that I've never even been present in a setting where any crimes have ever been committed in my life. The moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, forget a crime, I've never even been present in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me, as gaining the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child till this very day today. So that if question on crimes or anything remotely being considered bad being said around me gets taken away. The question that has to be asked is, if a person like Junaid is remembering this if question today in the month of August, it's August 7th, then where was this if question in the past 2 months when Junaid was trying to wanting to narrate in this trial. He was there in the month of June. He was there in the month of July. Where was this if question? It was never there. The reason Junaid never fought this hard in the month of June and July 2026, the last 2 months, is due to the fact that Junaid knew that his sex was more important. Junaid knew that his game plan of locking up my brain savant before May 25th, 2026, so that he would have a higher chance of scamming these girls was done. Since if before May 25th, 2026, Junaid thought that he could run his CEO story scam against these girls, whereas after May 25th, 2026, he realized that every single person knew that Junaid worked the same job, earned the same amount of money as my sister does, and that he gets into fights with work with people every single day, and that he loses his job every year, and that he's trying to get an early retirement every year, with this year 2026 being a confirmed case of an early retirement. So excuse me. So basically, after this CEO scam was caught, Junaid basically called the girls and told them the truth himself, saying that I get into fights every day at work, I lose my job every year, I'm trying to get an early retirement every year, with 2026 being a confirmed case, only so that the girls would be told by his own mouth instead of the person's mouth who told the girls about the CEO story being fake, so that there would be a less chance of the girls running away, since they'd find out through the person who told them about the CEO story being fake in the first place. So basically, yes, this was the game plan before May 25th, 2026. Junaid was making up stories and telling these girls. When the stories were all caught, by May 25th, 2026, he started having police call on him. And so when the stories were all caught, after May 25th, 2026, Junaid realized that, first of all, these people, like my elementary school teacher, Junaid never knew his entire life, only ran after them due to extreme envy of them liking me, getting their contact info from law enforcement, and then enviously running after them, only to get rejected at first, and then later on get the police call on him. After May 25th, 2026, Junaid realized he's going to need this brain savant of mine, since it's been talked about by artificial intelligence experts so much in court that he's now going to use court chatter to get the girls who heard about the court chatter to have me go scam the girls first and then have him sleep with them. After May 25th, 2026, he asked law enforcement straight out, even though I had nothing to do with him getting rejected by these girls, he asked law enforcement to break the front under part of my car, only to threaten me, put fear into me. Then he started asking me, are you going to help me scam these girls? I said, no, I'm not going to do that, because then my life is going to be ruined, and these people are going to be crying on the side when my brain savant gets freed, saying that I used them and ran away. So then he broke my fire stick for my TV, and then he kept asking me every single day, as was seen in the first video in the series, if I was willing to help him do this. And then I said, no, I'm not doing this. If I do this, obviously, after my brain savant gets freed, I want a nice, normal, happy life with my wife and kids and everything. I want the entire life that everyone has. I don't want 50 people crying on the side saying I used them and ran away. I'm not doing this. So then he broke my charging outlet. Now, he had law enforcement break all these things, so they're the biggest witness to all of this. And then he kept asking me over and over again. Now, Junaid saw that my dad, the greedy framer, has been kicked out, not only for lying 50 million times with every single thing he said being a lie, but also due to the fact that the reason my dad, the greedy framer, is banned with his visa to the U.S. and England has been found out that he was, in fact, encouraging people to go join terror groups, and those were, in fact, informants. Junaid has also seen that the other narrators, like Farah, the greedy framer, has been caught. She was trying to get U.S. law enforcement kicked out of the country of Pakistan in 2019. The same U.S. law enforcement that she now calls patriotic and good men, whether they are or not, is a separate question to be answered, but they're definitely not the people who she made the scathing police report against in 2019, one which she didn't even make. We know for a fact that police report was fully rigged. They never asked her any question that would ask a woman who would be making stalking claims against someone. So yeah, since Junaid realizes that the narrators other than him are all out, he is now making this if question in order to exaggerate the claim, but this if question is not needed to be asked in the first place, mainly because there is no hypothetical scenario of a crime being committed. There is a crime being committed. That is a wedding crime. And we know exactly who would have committed it, who would have known about it, not reported it, who would have covered it over, and after covering it over, law enforcement would have run their sex schemes and money fraud the entire year of 2023. And we know for a fact exactly we know every the other fact, which is the fact that after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I've never even remotely been seen in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad has been said around me, much less a crime or anything of that sort of nature. So basically, this if question that Junaid is bringing up right now, Junaid has to understand the fact that there's no crime that I committed. There's not even any crime setting that I was present in, but threatening people is a crime. Committing vandalism by breaking the front under part of their car is a crime. Breaking their belongings like their fire stick and their charging outlet is a crime. Threatening to do these things is a crime. Trying to scam other people's daughters by telling them made up stories about themselves being the CEO when in fact they're earning the same amount doing the exact same thing as my sister is a crime. Trying to force someone like me to comply with his demands of going over and scamming these girls and then passing them around to criminals and perverts like Junaid is a crime. These things are actual crimes, and the question that has to be asked is, where was this question of if Ihsan committed a crime the entire last 2 months of June and July when these narrators like my dad, the Greedy Framer, and Farah, the Greedy Framer, were still present? This question wasn't there. Instead, the question that Junaid was asking law enforcement the entire last 2 months was, is Ihsan complying with my demand? Is he going to scam these girls and then pass them around to me? Am I going to get my sex addiction problem fulfilled or not? Are you guys breaking his things? Is Ihsan looking like he's scared after you break his things? Is he looking like from his brain scanner he's going to comply with these requests after you threaten him with taking his oil out of his car every single day? These are the questions that he was concerned with the entire last 2 months while Junaid was committing these crimes against me. Not what if Ihsan committed a crime or not. So the question that has to be asked is, Junaid, why were you not asking this if question the entire month of June? Why were you not asking this if question the entire month of July? Every single day you were asking, did you break Ihsan's car? Does he know you broke his car? Did you ask him if he's going to help me scam these girls? After you asked him, he said no. Did you ask him? Did you tell him that you were going to take oil out of his car? Did he look like he was scared? Did you tell him you're going to break his windshield? Did he look like he was getting scared? Did you tell him you were going to slash his tires? Did he look like he was getting scared? Did you tell him you're going to break his car? Did he look like he was getting scared? Every single day, this was the question in Junaid's mind. Never asking this if question, what if Ihsan committed this crime? Never asking this question the entire months of June and July 2026, only to remember this question now on August 7th when he sees that my dad, the Greedy Framer, and Farah, the Greedy Framer, are out of the question. Now he remembers this if question, what if Ihsan committed a crime? Despite knowing that forget committing any crimes, since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, which is the point that a person is liable under the law, I've never even remotely been present in a setting where anything remotely considered bad has been said around me, much less a crime scene or anything of that sort of nature. So the crime, by the way, is what Junaid committed when Junaid, for the past 2 months, in front of law enforcement's eyes, has been telling them to break the front under part of my car. That was a crime. Telling them to threaten to take oil out of my car. That was a crime. Telling them to break my fire stick for my TV. That was a crime. Telling them to then ask me to go scam other people's vulnerable daughters, despite knowing that I would not sleep with them and I would lie to them by saying that I was going to marry them, and then sleep with them, use them, pass them around to Junaid, which was a crime. Then tell law enforcement to threaten to take oil out of my car, break my car, slash my tires, break my windshield. Those were all crimes. And then Junaid would then continuously ask me every single day to go scam these girls by telling them I was going to marry them, when in fact I can't marry every girl, only to then pass them around to Junaid, the pervert, for his sex addiction problems. You have to also remember the fact that law holds you accountable for every one crime you commit. So that first time he broke the first front under part of my car, that was a crime. Then the next thing, when he asked me to go scam someone's daughter, knowing that I can't marry everyone's daughter, that was a crime. that when he knew that he was having law enforcement threaten to take oil out of my car, that was a crime. When he asked law enforcement to slash my tires, that was a crime. When he asked law enforcement to threaten to break my windshield, that was a crime. That this is like literally just 5 crimes committed every single day for the entire month of June, the entire month of July, for the last 2 months while he was narrating in this trial. These two are both 5 crimes every one day that Junaid is liable for. That is 5 crimes a day that he's being 300 crimes for 2 months that Junaid is being liable for in the period of 2 months. Okay, there are 30 days in a month. Junaid is basically being 300 crimes in a period of 2 months that Junaid is being liable for under the law, committing each and every single day at least 5 crimes, fully with evidence that Junaid is committing. He's liable for 300 crimes for the past 2 months, and he's asking the question, what if Hassan committed this crime? The question that has to be asked is, why was you not asking this question for the past 2 months? When you were still in this trial narrating? I'll tell you why. My dad, the Greedy Framer, and Farah, the Greedy Framer, were not completely out yet, and you were not scared that my brain savant would get freed and I would be talking to the same girls that you were fully rejected by, had the police call on you every single day for the past 2 months, and now out of extreme envy, you want to ask this if question, despite knowing that I've never even remotely been present in a setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said, much less a crime scene around me, since I gained a sizable mental maturity as a child. And that's when you're held liable for crimes in your life, since you are gained a sizable mental maturity as a child. But even before I gained a sizable mental maturity as a child, no crime scenes. If anyone did say anything remotely considered bad around me, it would only be saying, and it would only be one of law enforcement's own BFFs, like Uncle Joey, that law enforcement who could have even remotely have said anything remotely considered bad around me. So this question of if, the question that has to be asked Junaid is, if you care so much about crimes, you have to understand the fact that I've never in my entire life, since childhood, since the day I was born till this very day today, been present in any settings where any crime scenes would have occurred. Not only that, I've never even, since I gained a slight bit of mental maturity, never even been present in a setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me. Ever since I gained a slight bit of mental maturity as a child. Before then, it was literally daycare that my mother had taken permission from law enforcement from the moment when I gained the size when I was an 11-year-old child, and it only stayed there till I gained a slight bit of mental maturity, at which point she fulfilled the promise that she'd made to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, never for me to ever again even remotely be seen in a setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever in my life, not due to us being tipped off, since we never talked about being tipped off. We would have at least whispered so, and I was only a child, which means that everything I would do would only be things that my mother would dictate, clearly showing from facts and evidences. She took me out of every setting no longer needed when I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, as she had promised law enforcement she would do. And it was not my choice, it was my mother's. Since I was a child, children do not make their own choices, and we know for a fact I'm telling the truth about my mother being at work, since she would never be present in that setting. And except for that, you have to look at the fact that after I gained a slight bit of mental maturity, I've never even remotely been present in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever in my life. And the fact that, you have to look at these facts and the fact that I have never committed any crimes my entire life, whereas Junaid has committed 300 crimes that he's liable for in just the past 2 months. You also have to realize the fact that since children are a person starts thinking in their life when they're about 8 years old. I have been under these tools since I was about an 11-year-old child, which means that I've only literally thought with my brain and my thought process my entire life till now Only for about 3 years in my entire life have I even thought of things with my own brain and with a free mind. After the 3 years as a child, from the ages of 8 to 11, when I started to think in this world, they were torturing me on a daily basis, every day, all day long, only due to extreme hatred against me and due to them being child predators. The reason we know that they're child predators is because when I was in Pakistan, and I was coming back with my overseas pharmacy degree, there was a child predator in my family. His name was Shani, and I found out that he was a child predator due to the fact that he had pictures of children less than 10 years old in his phone. And not only that, I saw him abusing a child, yelling at him, and he had pictures of children that were less than 10 years old in his phone, and then advertisements for children who would give people massages. And then I got scared and I came back home and I told my mother about it. I only met Shani about 3 times my entire life. Law enforcement's a witness to this fact. I came back home and I told my mother about it. You know what law enforcement did? They put the big ad that said, "Let him go," with the woman holding the pitchfork, and they told me to never talk about it ever again, or else they would hurt me or harass me. Why would someone protect a child predator, which we know he was a child predator? Come on. His phone, they could go through with their tools, their government tools, so they know that he was a child predator. I'm not making the story up. Why would you protect a child predator that you've only met only 2 days ago? You know that in third world countries with child predators literally kidnapping children in order to abuse them, why would someone in law enforcement protect a child predator in the first place? The answer is they see themselves in that child predator. They see themselves in that child predator. They feel the same fear that they know he fears of getting caught, which is why they protected him, which is why they tortured me as a child. I've only lived about 3 years of my life, from the age of being an 8-year-old child to an 11-year-old child, after which time I've been under severe torture, like literally every single day, all day, every day. Yeah. And so a person who's never committed any crimes was only in any setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around him due to being in a daycare, only till I gained a slight bit of mental maturity. My mother was never present there, and she took me out of every setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. And the brain scanner proves that neither me nor my mother have the slightest bit of bad thoughts about anyone. We love everyone, whether they're Christian, Jewish, Orthodox Jewish people with long beards, with the same level of love and respect for all of them. And that's how my mother taught me, and that's how she raised me. She's not low IQ, since she promised to fulfill the promise that she made the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. Yeah. Whereas law enforcement never fulfilled that promise to their country. They're incredibly stupid, since they never did their job correctly. Well, not stupid, they're just corrupt. So my mother ended up being a lot smarter than them. She wasn't stupid at all. She helped raise me. She helped raise my sister. We both turned out pretty well. We both went through college and everything. So I ended up having literally the most rare brain savant in the world. And if you don't believe me, just read the Artificial Intelligence Report from June 24th, 2026. It will tell you that there are only about less than 100 prodigious savants in the world right now. Out of them, I am number 1. The Artificial Intelligence Report will tell you that I'm the only brain savant in the world who has instantaneous photographic memory, innovation, and focusing. I'm the only brain savant in the world whose powers increase over time, and I'm the only brain savant in the world. All the other brain savants in the world also like doing what they like doing, their natural habitat, and I love doing this, and I did it for 4 years, from October 2019 till July 1st, 2023. For 4 years, all I did was stare into a textbook from morning till night. So the question that has to really be asked, Jeanette, is, why, for the past 2 months of June and July, this if question never asked? What if Hassan committed a crime, despite there not being any record of me even trying to commit any crimes? And he's only bringing this if question in right now to try to scare people into not letting my brain savant freed so that he could try to make up more stories or lies to try to run after these girls or to keep trying to run after them while having the police call on him. Yesterday was August 6th, and I'm pretty sure that even yesterday, he got rejected by my elementary school teacher, whom he never knew his entire life and was only running after her due to extreme envy of knowing that she liked me, and he wanted to run after her in revenge and out of extreme envy, only to get rejected by her again, despite already having the police call on him from before. So yeah, this is the level of envy that Junaid has, and it's not me who's ever even been remotely present in the crime scene. So it's only Junaid who's committed 300 crimes in the last 2 months of June and July alone, just threatening me, committing vandalism against my car, threatening to break my windshield, threatening to take out oil out of my car, breaking my fire stick, breaking my charging outlet. All these things are actual crimes that Junaid committed. So if this crime question is raised, what if Hassan committed a crime? It's not a real question, since Hassan never even tried to commit any crimes, never even talked about committing any crimes, never even wanted to commit any crimes, as proven from the brain scanner. The question that really has to be asked Junaid is, Junaid, why did, not if, why did you commit 300 crimes in the last 2 months? That's the real question that has to be asked, not what if Hassan committed a crime. Hassan never even thought about committing a crime, and we know this from a brain scanner. He never even tried to commit any crimes. We know this from him being watched 24/7, so he never was even remotely present in a crime. So this question does not belong to Hassan, who's never committed any crimes his entire life. The question that has to be asked Junaid, though, is, Junaid, why did you commit 300 crimes in the last 2 months by breaking vandalism against my car, and then threatening me after asking me to scam other people's daughters, then threatening me all day and night long to take all out of my car, break my windshield, break my car, and then breaking my fire stick, and then asking me again to scam other people's daughters, despite knowing I would never benefit them, I wouldn't even marry them, and then threatening to take all out of my car, break my car, slash my tires, and then seeing that I was not complying with his demand, then he broke my charging outlet. Why did you commit 300 crimes in the last 2 months? And if you committed these crimes, then why are you asking, what if Hassan committed any crimes, since Hassan's been watched 24/7 since he was an 11-year-old child, never even tried to, never even thought about committing any crimes proven from a brain scanner. So this crime question is not going to Hassan, it's going to Junaid. Junaid, why did you commit 300 crimes in the last 2 months is the question I want to ask Junaid.